Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design. Today, you're in for a treat because we are traveling to charming, historic Rhinebeck, nestled in New York's scenic Hudson Valley. And lucky for us, we're getting a private tour of the home and the just finished studio building of my very dear friend and Hall of Famer, Calvin Tsao, one half of the internationally recognized firm at Tsao & McCowan, the other half is Zach. And wait until you see there are treasures, stories, and beauty at every turn, thanks to the curated eye of this very special architect. Hi, Calvin.
Hi, Cindy.
How are you?
I'm really nice and happy to see you, actually.
I'm so happy to see you too. And really to share this with everybody. This is kind of a long story, right?
Yeah, 1997 is when we bought the property at 85 acres of orchard and forests. And we did it in support of scenic Hudson to ensure that there's no overdevelopment in this area.
Calvin, I kind of remember that the early idea was we have all this land and we're going to build something.
Exactly. But, you know, times are changing so fast. What we learned that we need to put our design efforts into other places rather than, you know, spanking new, never seen before stuff. And we're really now much more interested in preservation and restoration and adaptive reuse. And so the first thing we did here was, in fact, taking a dilapidated gatehouse that had been moved from across the street. It's the only structure on the site, and we fixed it up. And this is now a 800 square foot tiny cottage. And we lived in it for, oh my God, 18 years, I think, before we embarked on adding some studios. And I can't say that we were prescient, but it really lucked out because with the pandemic, we actually now have something to use to work out of, because this tiny cottage, as charming as it is, has no space. Our living space is just 8.5 feet by 9.5 feet.
I want to back everybody up a little bit because Calvin and Zach, or Tsao & McCowan, again, internationally recognized, but they also have a pretty big apartment in New York City, right, Calvin? That is in every design book about New York City. You will see this gorgeous apartment. It's like a sculpture. It's, you know, if you ask any design editor what's their favorite apartment in New York, for sure this one comes up over and over again. So it's kind of interesting, right? That then you picked this, you know, jewel of a house. Look, it was on big property, but this jewel of a house, and you stayed in this jewel of a house.
Yeah, I guess, you know, the thing is, we're not architecture or design virtuosos, you know, we, in a way. I mean, we don't like to flex muscles just because we could. And we like to work with what we've got. And this is what we got. We got 85 acres and this tiny little stone house. The original stone house, which is even smaller, was a gatehouse for the estate across the street. And it's dated 1875, I think. And then in the 50s, they moved this gatehouse to this current site and then added a kitchen, a 50s kind of addition, and a mudroom. And when we got it, it was practically falling down, and we shored it up, and then we added a screen porch behind it. And that's the only thing we added because we really like to be outside,
right,
away from mosquitoes and other bugs. And it was the best thing, you know, is to preserve what is there rather than kind of glom on things.
Even though you bought the property because you love the land, this is a beautiful, you know, precious house, right? You did kind of fall in love with the house, right?
Oh, we did. When we came in, that there was no floor, and it had been burnt down a little bit. And so we really had to restore it. We saw the bones of it, and it's just lovely. Very simple, clean. at the cusp of neoclassicism and Victorianism, so it's got a little bit of both of those characters, and
Yeah.
very gingerbready.
Yeah,
But
very gingerbread. Is it, so tell me the floor plan. Is there 1 or 2 bedrooms upstairs?
there are 2 bedrooms that we made from the attic, and the ceiling height up there at its highest is 6 feet 8 inches.
Wow.
And it goes down to 4 feet. So you really literally crawl up there and go to bed.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so this is what I want you to add it on the porch. Now, do you actually come in to the house through the back or the front of the house?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we really contemporized it because the front of the house is very pretty, but you come through the you can't really get to it very easily at this point because the house was moved, so it made no sense to the topography. But the back door to the kitchen door made perfect sense. So we actually made the kitchen door, and which made sense anyway to us because we usually go to the grocery stores or whatever, and come home and dump all our groceries right there, rather than trudge it all the way through the house.
Yeah, so you enter the back door, and you're immediately welcomed by the beginning of what will be many precious vignettes, right? So that one, right, that you like, that you just fall in love with. You want to walk. This should be a store.
Yeah, it could be a store. You can come in and shop the house. But anyway, I think the private place is actually the mudroom. It's the room that you come in first.
Right.
And then you go right and you go into the kitchen, you go left, you go into the screen porch. And it's painted my favorite kind of weird green. It's actually a historical color from the turn of the century. Very English. It's
whose paint is that?
It's Farrell and Ball.
Farrell and Ball. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're like kind of hit right away also, right, with this very sophisticated sense of these like kind of off colors, right?
Right. But then we kept all the old parts very clean. We painted the floor white, with the walls are white, and we're usually not known as a white architect. But in this case, the house is so small and intimate that actually white became a really nice color. And the really strong colors like that, this bottle green and then this cobalt blue bathroom. So all the little rooms, even little rooms, are very intense colors. And the smaller main rooms are, painted a very, very, very warm white.
And then the exterior is dark. That sort of blends in. It's hard to tell. What is it? Is it a dark charcoal or is it a green gray? What is it?
It's a color we mix up ourselves, and then I had it scanned, and it's actually mimics the tree bark outside. And the idea is to let it just sort of fade into the background.
Okay, I just hope everyone out there just heard that. So they scanned tree bark to help make the color. Is that what you did? Yeah. Okay. This is why I want to share him with you. That's why.
I know, it's crazy. We're running around like this tree bark, no, that tree bark. And we gathered all of the tree bark, put it on the floor, took a photograph of it, took it to the paint shop, and they thought we were crazy. Anyway.
Amazing. And then I understand that the porch, you can use it year round if you use the stove, right?
Yes. Well, not in deep, not in January and February.
Right.
That is too cold. But yeah, we did it all the way up to Christmas, and then by March we can use it again. Zach found on the internet, online, is amazing supplier of shakerware, and this is a shaker stove that just really is so well designed, visually and functionally. It puts out heat like you can't believe.
Wow. Okay, afterwards I need the name of that.
Okay.
But also this is very representative of your style, which is a very curated taste. And some pieces are known pieces, and some pieces are are anonymous, which makes it even more interesting because that means you went and found it.
Yeah, I think we look for things that appeal to us formally, and also something with a history that is compelling. History that has been forgotten, and we want to keep that history alive. Zach loves industrial, like farm equipment and
Right.
and scientific instruments. You know, the Earth's movement. They're geotechnical instruments from like 100 years ago, but they're so beautiful. They used to design things with such care. Even when they're just functional, there are always these flourishes, forms, and details, beautifully made. It's never, you know, some plastic stuff that you buy today.
And how would you describe your obsessions?
Okay.
Everything else.
I'm stuck in my past. I have this idea, I mean, of childhood that I don't know, don't call me Peter Pan, but and so I think stuffed toys and little figures, they say a lot about the way we think of ourselves as a being, as a culture. There's something mystical about it. And I'm not talking about Barbie, but even Barbie, you know, or G.I. Joe. But, you know, I just find things. A lot of them are like vintage sock dolls or things that people made.
A lot of crocheted. Yeah, in terms of the toys, there's a lot of crocheting I see.
Yeah, it's really, a lot of them are handmade toys, things whittled out of, you know, sticks of wood or sewn or crocheted or knitted. And they still have the hand of someone who made it. And obviously, it's something very dear to that person. And we want to preserve that kind of connection to people. There's a humanity in those objects. So they're not really like stuffed doll, you know, animals or something like that.
Right. No, I mean, when you see them all together, it's always like you've created a little installation. It's almost like little art installations all over the house. All right, so let's go into the living room, for instance. Calvin, did you guys like design the sofa, which looks like it's end to end?
Yeah, because we squeeze a lot of people in to watch like, you know, TV or something. We actually had 7 people squeeze into their watching, you know, old movies after Thanksgiving every year.
Wow.
Somehow.
And there's also this beautiful lamp. Where did you find that?
Yeah, that's actually metal. It's a welded, it's kind of cubic one, right?
Yes, yeah.
The whole thing is metal. Even the lampshade is metal.
Gorgeous.
And it's made by this craft person on Atlantic Avenue. You know, it's close to our office. And I walk down the street and there's this guy welding away. And I go, what is that? And I bought it from him.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. By the way, like for viewers out there, Calvin is sort of like, has sort of my soul. Like we both worked for the Design Trust that has an auction every year, an art auction. Right. And the two of us would go after the art like it was no one's business. And you can see some of his finds around this house as well.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's go. So now it looks like every room also has either shelving or a bookshelf or places where you actually can show off all these beautiful objects. So what about the dining room, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, we actually create all these surfaces so that I could serve dinner, you know, because there's not enough room for a lot of furniture. So we actually found all these things can hang on the wall. Some of them we made ourselves, but we got inspiration. Actually, the piece right behind me is a vintage, you know, Scandinavian piece. I actually don't remember the maker. Maybe there's no one, but it's beautifully made, and it hangs on a wall. And so when you don't have legs, I can't think about too many legs in the same space. So that kind of cleans the floor being, to the wall.
It looks like they're beautiful drawers to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, lots of little drawers. So we have all our knives and silverware and napkins and you name it, it's squeezed in there. It turned out to be a ceramic nut, so I have so many plates, dishes, bowls. I'll never use them all. I don't know why.
And then I even see that you like tucked in on, a beautiful window seat. That's very you as well, right? That's like a signature Calvin move.
Yes, always a window seat. I just love to stare out the window. So no matter where you are, whether you're in the city or out in the country, because you're at this kind of place between the safety of inside and the allure of outside, the mystery of outside. What's happening outside. It's something like internal, external. It's a real transition point.
It's beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to kind of crawl up the stairs.
Yeah,
right?
literally, you do.
Right.
It's very steep. Like the risers are 8 inches.
Oh my goodness! But I see there's a beautiful old tub on feet, right?
There's a place in Albany that's a salvage company that sells stuff. We also have bought a wonderful stove from the same place, and we had it restored. And the tub we had to reglaze too because there was like rust and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like something easy you buy and they ship. No, we have to go to Albany and lug it back in our back of our station wagon.
Yeah, but that's part of it, right, Calvin?
Yeah, it's in the hunt. What can I say?
Totally in the hunt.
It's not the product. It's the process is just important, I think.
Exactly. I always remember how hard it was to schlep home. Okay, so let's talk about the kitchen because you do a lot of cooking in there, and you really could be a chef, Calvin.
You haven't eaten it yet, but you
well,
have
it
to
looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's like made out of wax or something. No, I do love to cook, and they're pretty tasty.
Yeah. So did you on the sink side?
Yeah.
The counter and the shelving. Did you design all that?
Yeah, the kitchen we pretty much designed. We did find a dentist cabinet to put all our glasses in as a glass front cabinet. But otherwise, all the other furniture, save the stove and cabinet, are custom designed just so that I can actually have the right amount of counter space and storage space.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels like a piece of furniture too. I love how you pulled it away from the walls just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to think about kitchen in a very different way than apartment kitchen.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, you have the old chamber stove, which I had one in my old house, and they're amazing, right?
Amazing. The BTUs are incredible, and you can like roast a chicken in half the time.
I know, it's crazy, right? All right, so I need to know, so what is the favorite dish that you've posted on Instagram that you've cooked so far to date?
Okay, so actually, I've never cooked Chinese because the stir frying is just too much work and messes up everything, especially in an apartment. But now that I'm in a house, I can open all the windows. I have a great hood, and my siblings and I are having a kind of a family Zoom every week, and we came up with the idea of recreating some of the dishes from our childhood, some really weird things. And one of them was something an eccentric aunt used to make, which is baked pork chop in cream corn. Actually, it's not even Chinese. What am I saying? Anyway, it's not anything, and it's got mozzarella cheese and I have to say it's either because it's from memory, something that we love as a child, I love as a child, or maybe it is really tasty. I have no idea, but it really tastes good to me.
Wow.
And Zach didn't complain.
Okay, so there's a lot of cooking going on, amazing dishes, beautiful. And then you're gonna head outside and go to, are you calling it your office, your studio? What are you calling it?
Yeah, we'll call it this. It was meant as a studio. Now we're working in it as if it was an office. So I guess it's dual purpose. It's good because we actually have very well insulated rooms. So Zach can yell into his Zoom, and I can yell into my Zoom. You know, it's totally fine. And and it's a series of rooms that connected by little kind of bathrooms. Because
Two bathrooms, right? Two bathrooms?
yeah, it's doubling up as a guest room, guest quarters as well, because we can't have people over here. So we snuck in a bathroom, but we did it in two portions. One is the commode and the sink, and the other one is the shower and the sink. And because we are limited by the amount of space we can build, because of a promise to Scenic Hudson that will limit our footprint. So there's no corridor between the rooms, and we walk through the rooms via these bathrooms. And also a screen porch in front. So in the summer you can just open your French doors and then connect to each other that way, or go through the bathroom.
But there's also an outside, out of those two rooms is a beautiful, actually built-in kind of sink area with art over it, right? The tree of life, it looks like.
Yeah. And also outside we have a patio, if you can believe it, a patio with a built-in bench that looks over the orchard. And we actually still in the process of adding a fire pit. Can you believe it? I can't believe I'm adding a fire pit. It's so, like, I don't know.
The building is beautiful though, and I love that you have this space in between where you like walk, where you're walking under. What is it? It looks like, were there pieces, two different trees you're using as part of the building?
Oh yeah, so that connects us to a brand new garage. Because, Zach loves his vintage cars, so he doesn't want to park the cars outside. So he has a 1961 Lincoln Continental that just got restored. So we built a garage and a workplace. So we have a little workbench in there so we can do our projects. And then between that and the studio, there's a little breezeway.
Right,
and
breezeway, yes.
Down two tree trunks to support that breezeway. It's a little bit like, primitive hut revisited.
I love that. That's so you too. It's so beautiful. And I love that kind of pathway, and you're sort of meandering in between these different buildings now. It's really special. Tell us about the office space too, which, by the way, it also looks like a gallery for all of your collections.
We're busting out with stuff. So it just finds its way wherever, all over the place. I mean, I have a wooden airplane. Don't ask me why.
I love it.
I think I'm going to hang it, but I don't know. I haven't gotten around to it. Well, I mean, Zach is more conventional. He has a desk, and but he also have a daybed / window seat that he can take naps in. I'm just too hyper to even think about naps. So, and in fact, I have a standing desk because I just can't sit down. So you have a standing desk, it's very big, it's like 4 feet by 7 feet. And so I can really spread out. All our drawings are so big anyway. So, right. And also I have a sewing machine
wow.
from my grandmother that I found in a storeroom. So I am going to start learning how to sew.
That's amazing. I keep thinking about that. I don't do it, but I keep thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to sew clothes. I just want to make things using the sewing machine.
Right, exactly.
Watch out, some weird shit coming up.
a lot of new toys coming up.
New toys.
So, Calvin, tell us of a couple of your favorite, like a favorite spot in the house and maybe a favorite vignette.
Well, as you just intimated, I love window seats. So the window seat is definitely my corner. And I always curl up and looks out onto the main road and the farm stand that's on our property. So I can see comings and going. So it's not the rear window, it's like more like the front window. And that's one of my favorite places. But in the studio, I think I really love the space outside. Also, again, looking out onto the orchard. That bench that we designed that's built into the house. So the house, this little building looked like, it's very conventional. I mean, it's a shed, basically a shed bar, but it has a little foot in front, like a pad, almost like a sphinx or something, and you can sit on it. And it has a little low stone wall in front of it. And eventually we want to find a kind of nice table so you can actually have drinks or even have dinner out there. Mm-hmm. So I have great plans for that space.
Do you ever talk about the fact that you had imagined something quite different and how special this turned out to be?
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing about getting older, you are sometimes getting wiser, not always, sometimes. Mm-hmm. And you realize that less is more. And also let life take its course. Inspiration is everywhere. Just don't get fixated on an intellectual idea, I think. Yeah, I mean, you need something but to start something, but it's just a starting point. That's what I've learned over the years, that whatever comes up in the frontal lobe should allow the rear lobe to really come in and do its magic. So it just meaning you have to be sensitive to your elements.
Yeah. And you find beauty in everything, Calvin, and you seem to be able to take something that's often overlooked and create something quite magical from it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, beauty, what is it, right? I mean, I sometimes think my idea of beauty evolves. Through discovery, you notice things that you've never noticed before, and it moves you somehow. And I think that's what beauty is. It moves you somehow. It stirs up something inside of you and make you question about all kinds of things, you know. And that's why, you know, sometimes beauty can be morbid or beauty can be ethereal. And I must say that, you know, I've never spent so much time in nature as I have over the last few months, which has been a great blessing, even though there are lots of other tragic things going on. But for me, the one blessing is to have this time for introspection and also be exposed to more nature than I ever imagined I would be exposed to. And nature is an amazing wealth of inspiration.
Yeah, looking at the house, I was going to say, I see nature everywhere, not just outside, but in the objects and the beauty and the simple materials, the collections, the nests. I see nature everywhere in this house.
Yes, nests. That's another thing that we collect. It's on wasps. Nests and paper wasp nests, which are pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, beauty in this house, beauty in everything that you do, Calvin and Zach, in your mind, you're just a beautiful person. And we're so lucky that you're sharing this wonderful treasure of a house on this incredible property with us today.
So many compliments. I don't even know how to take it.
Oh, please. Oh, please. I wish I was there so we could be like touching all the things.
I know.
You know?
Well, when this is over, you have to come up and visit.
I know. Okay, when this is over. So in a couple of years from now, I'll see you.
Yeah, right, at this rate.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to come over with face masks either.
I know. No, I don't want to. Thank you, Calvin, with all my heart. I thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're the only person I would want to share this with, because
Well, a few more might be seeing it now, but I appreciate
No,
it.
but through your eyes,
Thank
and
you, Calvin.
I
Thank
trust
you.
you
Thank you.
so much, and I
Thank-
love you so much.
I love you too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pamela Jaccarino, Editor-in-Chief of Luxe Interiors and Design. Welcome to Masterclass. Today, I invite you to be inspired by a leading lady of design, Ellie Cullman of Cullman & Kravitz. The renowned design work that comes from her all-female firm is much like the woman herself, intelligent, classic, approachable, and fun. Ellie, it's so nice to see you. Tell
Pam,
us
thank
where,
you.
yeah, tell us where you are sheltering in place. I imagine you are in your fabulous place in Manhattan, yes?
Well, I've had a very interesting time during COVID. I started out in Manhattan, and I actually was one of the early COVID cases. I came down with the virus on March 11th,
Oh
and
boy.
I didn't know it was the virus. I just thought it was the flu. And my husband said, "Oh, just go get the test." And I got the test, but the test was so slow at that point that by the time I got the results back, I was feeling fine. So I was like, this is no big deal. Afterwards, I had a test which proved that I was negative, and also I had lots of antibodies. So I've given the antibodies, the plasma already 4 times, and I'm so relieved to know that I can help in any way with this horrible moment in our history, in our country.
Yeah, well, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry that you went through that. And I'm glad that you're feeling good. And yeah, you know, it's so interesting because we were all together the last time at the New York School of Interior Design event, which I think was like March 1st, and sort of like, should we hug? Should we not hug?
And we
It was
didn't
like-
hug, but yet several people got sick.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm in the country now because I'm COVID negative. I was very lucky. I spend my weeks in the city and I come out to the country as we have kind of most of our marriage. So I just got here to the country this afternoon. And it's, you know, a joy to have both sides of my life. I feel very lucky.
Good. I'm so glad to hear it. So when you are in, I believe I have my facts straight, but your home office, I believe it's in the city, but it may be the
Yes.
country.
No, it's in the city.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is pretty dreamy. I know you have a fab Regency style partners desk that once belonged to Bunny Williams. Tell us about that space and sort of how it's been for you to not go into an office and to work, you know, out of that space, Ellie, these last few months.
Well, I feel very lucky because I do have a wonderful dedicated space in the city with a lot of books on design, which have been very inspirational over this period. And we've managed to get our work done. It's not easy, as you know. The joy and the excitement and the energy of being together in a room, either the staff and I, or ourselves with clients, or ourselves with vendors, is not there now. It's very different when it's virtual, but we're doing the best we can. And we've been lucky enough. Last week, we installed a large house in Greenwich, 10-bedroom house, which,
Wow.
yeah. And we had 80% of the stuff completed. Some of the very custom stuff wasn't done at the end. Right now, my girls are in Massachusetts installing a house, which I'm going to go to Monday and Tuesday to hang the pictures and do all the accessories. So we've managed, but I so miss the person-to-person interaction. It's just not the same.
Yeah, we've talked to so many design professionals across the country. We were with a big architect yesterday chatting, and you know, he said the same thing. And you know, it's interesting how I was curious also, like how you and your, you know, I thought we're old school girls. millennials, the two of us, right? Like we're super old school. I was raised that way. The notion of like, you know, even my gosh, you know, I mean, obviously I text, not to my parents are like, don't text, but you know, the notion that we're relying on Zoom in the design world, right? And I imagine it just feels so odd, especially for you to, you know, not, you know, touch and feel, you know, fabrics and see things. Talk a little bit about how, you know, you have adapted, number one, and also, you know, you've got high-end clientele. How have they adapted, quite frankly, to all of this?
Well, I think existing clients where we're kind of more than halfway through the design, or at least 25, 30% of the design, where we already have the rhythm going, we know what they like, those jobs have proceeded much more easily than the brand new jobs where we never had the face-to-face meeting in the office where we just discussed where we're going with the project. You know, I always like to say that we collaborate, we don't dictate. So we always try to get with the clients like first and then put it together the way how we think it works. So with the newer clients, that's been a bit of a problem. I mean, we have one 7-story townhouse in Manhattan. A couple is moving back to New York from Austin, Texas. And my colleagues had only 2 meetings with her.
Like, you can't read the, you know, it's so nuanced, right? When you're sitting across from someone and, you know, you're charged to design their home, you know, you can't, it's hard to start. Like, how do you start a new relationship via Zoom? I guess certain people are.
Well, it's interesting. For relationships that have started already, it becomes a little bit easier.
Yes.
It gives more focus to the clients. Also, when somebody has a deadline that they're coming back to go to school, hopefully in September, they know that they have to make decisions. And also, of course, we send them copies of everything. And then if they open the box and they don't like the feel of the linen, whatever, we can change it. But at least we have the broad strokes. It's just harder starting from scratch. And
right. And even, you know, I didn't think about this, but I'm just thinking about this now. Like, so, you know, I don't know, who knows in the coming weeks or months, you know, even if you're meeting with someone 6 feet apart, 10 feet apart, you know, you've got either a mask or one of these crazy, I like the shield.
You like the shield?
Well, I did go out. I've barely left my house, Ellie. Honestly, I've barely left my house. I did go out to see a designer who happened to be down here, who had a new property. And I came with my mask and my gloves, and they said, you know, do you want to put the shield on? You know, we're like Velcro's here.
Yeah, no, I have that. I have that too.
And I sort of, you know, it was so funny. I forgot I had it on for a minute, like put the drink on myself.
Oh, you know what I'm going to get for you, Pam? There's a new mask that's out that has a zipper. One of the girls in the office found it, so because she drinks iced coffee off a straw the entire day. So she opens her zipper and she does the iced coffee. So she's up in Massachusetts right now, but I'll find out where she got it.
I have not seen that. I could use one of those.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's all bizarre anyway.
I also think that you're missing a lot of, I mean, I guess maybe because I'm a Gemini or because maybe what I do, I love change. I love new. So if you're doing everything virtually, you're more likely to fall upon solutions that you did already, because after all, you've taken people's money. You don't want to give them something you haven't seen, you haven't touched, you haven't, you know, It's one thing to change a dimension, but it's another thing to go to a picture off a website. So I think it's a real problem, and I'm praying that our country comes out of this sooner rather than later.
I know. Well, I like change too, but not this kind of change. This kind of change from March 1st to now is a little bit, it's a little intense. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to, you know, talk to you about, Ellie, is that I love the fact that you have an all-female design studio. And I read in my research that you said that decision is deliberate. So 2 things, explain why, and also really you've never had a male on your staff in all these years.
Well, we actually had 2 males. Our first male was sort of the test case. And to be honest, he was a talented designer and had good ideas, but he thought that our business was all about like sitting and drawing curtains. And the first time that this became apparent to me is when we were about to install a house in New Orleans. And I was like, oh my God, you're drawing. Is the truck ready to go? Do we have everything we need? And he looked at me so blank. I'm like, I'm like, this is not going to work. So conversely, I think women are so practical. We're so used to multitasking. I mean, with all due respect to men who today are helping with housework and diapers and everything else, for women, multitasking is like just something we do naturally. I also think there's been an amazing camaraderie in our office. So we work in teams, and when one woman has a problem with something, whether, unfortunately, we've had a bad divorce from one of the girls and, you know, all kinds of family problems like that, the people on the teams, which are all teams of 4, help the other person out. And I must mention that we did have at one point, we had an intern who was a male model from Australia, who was so gorgeous. He used to show up in his t-shirt every day with the rippling muscles, and we would all swoon. And then he'd go in the D&D building and give us great credibility in the showrooms.
You're like, well, maybe we should have a male on.
Male.
That's
So
so
men
funny.
on, we decided that it was working as an all-female office, and let's just do it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We, on the Luxe Edit and Art side, we're
Yeah.
all women, except we have one guy, Kyle, who's amazing. He's one of our production designers. And sometimes we'll get on our little Zoom happy hours and we're talking about
Yeah.
the art and all stuff. And I'm like, oh God, Kyle, let's like, he's like, what is going on with you ladies? But anyway, I totally get it. I also am always, you know, I love to talk to designers and also sort of find out, like, go back to like early days. And I'm really curious about, you know, your early days, specifically your decision to study design in East Asia as your graduate school studies at Columbia, number one. And then you also flew to Japan for a 2-year experience. So
Well, that was kind of backwards. I
oh,
was
I'm
on my
sorry.
way to-
Okay.
No, it's
My
okay. I was on my way-
researcher, which is me.
No, it's a funny story. I was on my way to law school when my husband proposed, and I was like, what the heck? And then it was 1968, and graduate school was no longer a deferment, so he decided to give the Army 3 years instead of 2, and we went, he had 1 year in Washington learning Japanese, and then we lived in Japan for 2 years, which was so liberating for me because I had gone to college in New York City because my parents wanted me home every night. So I went to Japan with him, and I lived there for 2 years, and I immersed myself in all the culture. And I always say I really learned about design by studying flower arrangement, because the whole crazy thing of you can spend 2 hours arranging 5 chrysanthemums. You know, that's kind of an exercise in the Japanese flower schools. You exercise where the thing is going, what pot you're putting it in, how it's being viewed, high, low, what's frontal, I mean, it's so interesting. And that's kind of where I started my interest in design. When I came back from Japan, I enrolled in graduate school in Columbia. And then I discovered that it wasn't about aesthetics at all. It was all about learning those wretched Chinese characters. And you need to know exactly 1850 cold and like 5,000 combinations to read the paper. And I said, forget it. And then through a whole series of events, I landed up doing interior design. And I feel so lucky because, you know, it encompasses everything in the world that I'm interested in. And it's always changing. There's always a new cast of characters and a new aesthetic. It's a very lucky thing for me.
How much did your experience in Japan, I mean, do you feel like it still informs your work in some ways? And if so, how? And also, do you go back to sort of, you know, do you ever find that you're sort of going back to that experience to bring things forward that you're working on? Or is it just intrinsically in a part of you now?
No, I always go back to Japan, and maybe even more than aesthetics in terms of interpersonal relationships. The whole idea in Japan is that you don't dictate from the top down. You let ideas percolate from the bottom, and then you come to consensus. And I think that the reason, to be honest, why our company's work gets better and better is because we work in these teams and everybody has a say. It's not just one girl is made to type lampshades, God forbid. You know, she has to have ownership in the project also and come up with ideas. So also how to talk to people when there's a disagreement, how to say, I mean, my favorite line is, you know, if there's something like, what do you think is fair? And then come to a consensus together rather than one person digging their heels in, as we see in our political life right now, and saying, this is what we're doing, or that's what we're doing. So the aesthetics are definitely ingrained in me. The idea, you know, that whole thing about how to wrap 5 eggs in Japan, and my year working at the Japan House Gallery where I was exhibition coordinator, it teaches you that even the everyday parts of your life have to be harmonious and have to speak to a total aesthetic. So it's worked for me both psychologically, philosophically, and aesthetically. And I feel so grateful for that time. And we go back every 4 years. We were there this fall for an immersive trip in kind of what we call old Japan. You know, it spent so much time in all the new places. And now we went back to places that hadn't changed, really, even since World War II. And it was fantastic to be in those inns and those baths, and I loved it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I know we can't really travel now, which is a whole,
I know.
do a whole
Well,
other
that's
subject.
it's going to be such a huge influence on design because I love to travel, and every year we go to the various fairs in Europe. But if this was going to be my first year going to the Milan Furniture Fair, and because we were more traditional, I hadn't gone. I paid for my deposit on the hotel, the airplane, everything, and of course it was canceled early on. I think it was back in March when they canceled it. So that's going to be a huge hole in all of our experiences. All the art fairs.
It's interesting. I agree with you, Ellie. It's interesting how we're all sort of, in our homes, sort of stuck in our homes. But I've spoken to a lot of people who feel as though, and I want to get at your perspective on this, that it will be interesting to see what type of creativity comes out of this, because I always like to look on the upside, or the
Right.
optimistic
No,
side.
you're right.
Where we do have, and I don't know if you feel this way, I do, that I've gained a little bit more time, so to speak, because although some days I don't feel that way at all, I feel like, wow, another thing.
Yeah.
But we're not running around as much. We're sort of, I don't know if you feel that, like, that you've gained a little bit more time at all during this, just because we're not, running so much. I don't know. How do you feel about
Well,
that?
I think there's definitely more time for reflection. We all ran from one thing to another. And the truth is, we could all sit back and say, oh my God, our world has changed, and lament how it's changed. We have to come up with, as you say, something positive from this experience. And, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. I mean, it certainly has been a great time with our families, right? We spent more time with our homes, with our families. I'm lucky enough that my grandchildren are here on the property in Connecticut. And because I finally, passed my kids' muster with my 900 titers, I'm finally allowed to hug and kiss them and have them sleep over. And it's been a wonderful, special, unique moment. And my granddaughter actually said to me, she said, this is the best time of my life.
Aww.
Because she's got her parents home every night. There's no nanny, there's no school. She comes to us and sleeps over, and we let her do naughty things like eat chocolate. And, I'm sure she'll always remember this, and I will too.
Yeah. So, we both are women who do love change. The world of design always evolves. And, I was curious what your big picture sort of, it's sort of like a crystal ball moment. How do you think, in terms of design and decoration of homes, and you look back at history and certain, moments, of postmodernism, I'm calling this the post-corona era. I mean, well, we're not there yet. Hopefully, we're not there yet. We would celebrate if we were there. But it is interesting to think about how design might evolve. And obviously, I don't know if your clients are sort of asking for things, or if you've contemplated this, but I wanted to get your perspective on that as well.
Well, I think one important thing is, I think loft living is over. Doors are going to come back big time. People really need to have private spaces in this post-COVID era. You never know when you're going to be made to stay at home again. And you can't have, our homes multitask now. They were private spaces, and right now they're schools, they're sick bay, they're playgrounds, they're offices. People have to carve out their space, or have a space that's carved out for them if possible. So I think that's going to change design a lot. I also think that outdoor spaces are going to become much more important. For example, even in Wretched Manhattan, where we have no outdoor spaces, everyone in the office that have the tiniest balcony, really like 9 feet by 12 feet, are so happy for that little bit of outdoor space. So I think those are two important things. But mostly, I actually, I kept saying, I always say that the form and function are the twin pillars of interior design, but I think really important flexibility is going to be now. Yes. So that's what I'm kind of, talking to everybody about. So those
Yeah.
are kind of like big, big picture thoughts that I think are going to change.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, to fast forward 5 years and then look back and sort of see, because I love history, so it would be interesting to see sort of where we land.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. I know you are a woman of action and you're a doer and you're always on the go and you love the theater and, you're just, to me, you're always engaged. How have you stayed engaged these past few months and what have you been, I know you have your family there, obviously, but you also, I know you're a woman who loves to read. So share with us a little bit about, how have you been keeping yourself inspired during a time where you really can't go to the theater or travel?
Travel, the movies, and restaurants. My 4 favorite things in the world. I can't do any of them. So I'm sort of, in terms of reading, and you and I've talked about reading before, I'm doing a whole high-low program. Like one book I read is high. Like I read the Great Influenza book, which was terrifying. And that's my high. And then my favorite was the book called The Splendid and the Vile about Churchill during World War II. And then I go low, like, American Dirt and things like that. And then I've also, for the first time, this is really like my lowbrow moment. You know how everybody talks about all the day, as they say, water cooler talk about all the series they're watching? Well, I have gotten so into the series. Like there's one called Restaurant about Sweden post-World War II. And because my family owns a restaurant and it's all about class struggle, and anyway, it's fascinating.
I have to get the Ellie Cullman watching list because I did read Splendid and the Vile. I read that early days of COVID and it really helped me, honestly. It really helped me to cope with everything and my anxiety at that time. And I did live American Dirt. That one I went through really quickly. But
yeah,
I need you to email me sort of the Ellie Cullman reading.
Let's exchange lists.
Publish it for everyone. We should publish it for everyone.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love you. Have you ever seen Foyle's War?
No.
It's a really old series from England from like 2005. And it's all about Britain during the Blitz, but it's taking the southern coast of Britain. It's a detective. It's his son who's in the RAF. It's all the Nazi sympathizers. And anyway, so that with Splendid and the Vile was like a religious moment.
Yeah,
for me.
we needed that, right? We need some religious moments.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Anyway, so what else? I mean, you're always working on something. What are there any new projects or a book or anything sort of?
Well, definitely doing a book. I think it's sort of an addiction. I can't describe it as any other way. There's nothing more wonderful. I used to say, I wrote my first book on American antiques. The first time I cracked the spine open and I heard that sound, I was like, oh my God, I'm a grown up. So now I really want to focus on the younger generation in the office because I have 4 partners. They've all been with me 15 to 20 years. They're amazing. And I want to showcase their work in the next book. And we actually got a little bit stuck because we were supposed to shoot 2 things in March and April. That's over. And now I don't think we're going to shoot anything until next year, right? Because it's a lot of the buildings, for example, in Manhattan won't let you come in, and you always pick up last minute things. Can't do that anymore. It's the machinery is very difficult. And as far as projects, we have a few that we're especially looking forward to. Some that are kind of like 75% done. And for me, one of the exciting parts of my career, and I think for our office, has been working with really wonderful architects. So we have a house in Florida with Robert Stern's office. We have a great house in Delaware that's going to go up with Peter Zimmerman, who we worked with on the Palm Beach project that was in our last book. What else? David Scott Parker has a wonderful. This is an interesting project for me because it's modern rustic.
Oh.
So my house is like trad rustic, but these people are big modern art collectors, and they have everything has to be of the essence of the thing, sort of going from Nakashima on. That's kind of what their or before. That's what their thing is. So I think that's going to be the most original of all the projects.
Well, we will love to see those projects when they come out, if we're able to see them.
Of course we will, but they have to be finished, which is such a struggle right now. I mean,
You'll get there. You know it is. It's like one foot in front of the other. It's a weird year, Ellie, right? It's going to be, I mean, we won't even discuss the fact that it's an election year and a COVID year. And
yeah,
I mean, right.
right.
But yeah, it's, you know, I think that we'll all be, right, 2020 will be like indelibly in our minds forever this year. And
Right.
I like to focus on the positive parts of it. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, because it's easy to sit back and not focus on the positive. What are we going to do? This is what our life is now. Have to embrace whatever it is and be grateful for, you know, I'm grateful I'm well. I could have.
Yeah. And I will say, I've also thought, yes, to sort of conclude things, I've often thought like when it is safe, there will be a vaccine one day. We will at some point be able to be together in a room. I feel like there is going to be like these design parties that we all go to, or like maybe next year's Kips Bay dinner. We will never leave. We will have to book, right? We'll have to book the room for like the entire night because we will be
Overnight.
there.
I agree.
We'll have to be overnight, right? We will never
Sounds
want to
great.
leave one another because we miss, you know, like I really miss the design community, right? That I love so much. And I've seen everyone through this screen, but it's just not the same. I don't know how you feel about that as well.
Agree 100%. So hopefully we'll celebrate all this sooner rather than later. Right?
Yeah, we'll have like, it'll be like a black tie / pajama party. So after 2 in the morning, you can get comfortable and maybe Luxe will sponsor that. I would be behind that.
I would really and have your outfit combine black tie and pajama.
Exactly,
Right?
and I will not be wearing that zippered mask. Hopefully, we will not be doing that. That will be a thing of the past.
Right.
Well, anyway, Ellie, it was so nice to see you and to be with you, and we love what you do, and you know the ladies in your firm, and so we're really going to look forward to what comes out of your practice, which is always inspiring to so many of us. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for everything, Pam. Love seeing you today.
Love seeing you too.